Welcome, everyone. This is Jim Sporer with ISSIP, the International Society of Service Innovation Professionals, and it's my pleasure today to welcome Jochen Wirtz, who's in Singapore and at the National University of Singapore Business School. Jochen is one of the leading service researchers in the world. I should have presented his Google Scholar so you can all see what a world-class scholar with citations looks like. But Jochen is the real deal. And his textbook is also right at the top of the list of his Google Scholar citations. Jochen is one of the top service marketing, but it's really service marketing and innovation that he developed originally with Chris Lovelock, another pioneer of, and both Jochen and I are recipients of the Lovelock Award. Thank you, Jochen, for that as well. But I want to get right into this very, very important topic of generative AI. That's what the world cares about today. But Jochen explored a very interesting angle, which is what happens when GenAI meets service robots. So Jochen, if you could just take us through your slides and we'll have a few questions at the end, that would be great.
Wonderful, Jim. Absolutely lovely to be here with you. And thank you for this most generous introduction. And I mean, Jim is right that I've really been focusing a lot on innovation and technology and service robots and AI and these topics. And I mean, since the last 10 or so years, we have seen massive innovation in what we call information processing type services. So any service where you don't have to touch anything physical. So think of Google Maps, think of the fintechs like Wise or Revolut. So I use Revolut, for example. They have a banking license in the US, in the EU, in the UK, in Singapore. And basically you have a bank account in every single country to receive payment, to make payment, and so on. And yet I never chatted with, emailed with, or talked to a Wise employee. So they really hit the gold standard in scalability and automation, which we call end-to-end automation. But what has been lagging behind is physical AI, meaning service robots. Yes, so the massive productivity increases we had in service, in information processing type services, didn't really move towards the physical side. So the question is, I mean, before I go there, let me also say that there's sort of two research streams at the moment. And just as an introduction here, you know, how controversial all of that is. And here, my first stream is really, I work in aging societies, and people ask, oh my gosh, who will do all of the work here? You know, we are running out of people in the working age. And the other stream is what I'm presenting here today is, oh my gosh, Gen I and robots will take all the jobs. How can people earn a living? Yeah, so I mean, I think, and you go to conferences where these type of papers get presented. These are exactly the two sentiments that are being shared. But if you look at the two of them, I think the solution looks pretty obvious here. Yeah. Now, I've been working in AI for a long time, and we developed a definition of service robots long time ago. And I mean, you can look against this definition. Have service robots, physical service robots, actually delivered? And you can see here our definition is service robots are system-based, autonomous, and adaptable interfaces that interact, communicate, and deliver service to an organization's customers. And I think we can agree that most service robots are sort of awkwardly standing around at airports and banking halls and so on, and don't do an awful lot, really. Yeah, so if you really look at it, we were optimistic 10 years ago what service robots will be able to do. Now, the question is, will that change, right? And experts really think so. I mean, Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, I mean, the next wave of AI is physical. The era of robots has arrived. Or Narayan, Group CEO of Technology at Accenture, robots will be able to move into customer-heavy environments, work in unpredictable settings, communicate with anyone and take on any number of tasks without needing to be specifically trained for each. Or my colleagues, Dominic, Gabi, and Jenny van Dorn here, they published a paper and they say service robots will become ubiquitous in our daily lives, not only performing tasks efficiently, but also forming deep emotional connections with their human users or customers here. Here, my last quote is Citi Global Perspectives and Solutions. They focus on the physical robot dexterity is improving, with some now being able to thread a needle. And what Citi predicts is that we will have an installed base of 750 million physical service robots in 5 years. And I mean, that is one robot in 11 humans. And you can imagine that most or the majority of these robots will be deployed in developed economies. So the density of robot installations will be huge in the US, in the EU, in Japan, Korea, and so on and so forth. And even in China, where today it's actually in the service sector, robots have much higher acceptance and distribution than, let's say, in the EU. Now, the $1 million question, right? Why is this change now? And I mean, I'm quite proud of this book here. We published 4 years ago, Intelligent Automation, and I'm very proud of it, why it was for 10 years on the Amazon bestseller list. And we talked about hyper automation, end-to-end automation of customer service processes, no human touch, right? No people involved. And I mean, one of the key messages was, look, it's not one technology, it's a lot of technologies come together with APIs to tons of systems, and from police records to credit score ratings and other things. But what in 2001, which we didn't have, was judgment. So the decision making of these systems was very deterministic. They couldn't really make trade-offs and make decisions. And that is changing now. I mean, this is our latest book, which, by the way, since launch also has been on the bestseller list of Amazon. And the big game changer is here, Agentic AI meets service robots. And that is a game changer. Yeah, let me share with you a few of the things that really will change here. The first is these physical robots have integrated large language models. We are all familiar with ChatGPT, but now your AI, your physical AI, can talk to you, can consult you, can counsel you, and I mean, you can see here, this is my co-authors or my academic friends here, Christina and Tatiana. Large language models allow service robots to engage in more nuanced, contextually relevant, empathetic conversations, explain complex medical terms in simple language, and even foster emotional well-being. So you can see they do research in hospitals, and they see the robot capabilities moving dramatically. We see these robots everywhere. They're a little bit clumsy right now, but they will be large language model powered. And the future interaction medium will not be anymore typing on a screen. It will really be voice. And I'm talking more and more to my smartphone here. And I got the new Apple 16 only because they promised Apple Intelligence, but unfortunately it's not terribly intelligent yet, you know. So I'm still waiting. But I expect that agentic AI will be sitting in our phones, in Siri and in Alexa, and you can just say, hey Alexa, please make a reservation at this restaurant, 7 p.m. window seat, quiet corner or something. So they will be able to execute these things for you. So it's really large language models as one game changer. And the other is similar, is large behavioral models. And similar, I mean, you can show a robot on how to pick up a glass of beverage or wine. And you show a few ways, and the robot learns through showing and through talking to the robot. But the interesting thing is a robot learns, and whether that learning is physically or from videos or from the metaverse doesn't really matter. So in a day, you can train a physical robot a million ways how to pick up a glass of beverage and how to serve that. And so it's like a large language model. Then when the robot moves in the physical world, it has these million kinds of fragments in its memory here, in its system, to guide its behavior. And that's really a game changer here. The next is Agentic AI. And you can see here, Jensen Huang has these beautiful keynotes. He's always very futuristic. But click on this one here, you can go into exactly where he talks about physical AI and agentic AI and how he sees the future. It is just mind-blowing here. And what it does, I mean, what does agentic AI have that our old models don't have? And it's memory, so it's contextual continuity, reasoning and planning, so it can build and evaluate alternative courses of actions, make trade-offs, make decisions. It can execute. So it can plan the whole thing, right? Sequencing of tasks, setting priorities, accessing allocation, accessing and assessing and allocating resources and managing timelines. So it can work around those things here. It can reflect and learn based on outcomes. And it can really autonomously pursue goals. So it can, if it interacts with you at a table at a restaurant, it has the goal of serving you, making you happy, getting your food together and hot and on time and in sequence and process payment and so on and so forth. It even is so far that if the restaurant is busy, frontline staff can program it so that it talks less, it is a bit more efficient during busy times, but slows down during the colder times when the restaurant is not so busy. So it can really deliver end-to-end customer service without human involvement here. So it's agentic AI. The others, it comes all together. It's not just one of these technologies again, but all of it together, multimodal input. And then we will have services such as a hairdressing salon. At least for Jim and I expect in 5 to 10 years, we will be going to a robot-delivered hairdressing salon that will have smart mirrors where it will take shape of your head and your hair, give you some suggestions of what can be done given what you have, you know. And then you say, okay, go, and the robot will go. And I mean, what I find interesting, look, you know, we don't know what these robots will look like. So there's this 20 top human advanced robot models here. There's also a YouTube video. More than half of them are Chinese. Yeah, so it's not just Figured O2 and Optimus and so on. China is moving really fast. And I found this little robot so interesting here. I mean, people talk about the uncanny valley, meaning people feel uncomfortable if a robot looks very much like a human. Yeah. And yet there are certain behaviors that make us comfortable. So this little robot here, you know, when you talk to a robot and it stands completely still and doesn't make any movement, it makes us feel sort of not having impact, not being heard. So this robot stands in front of you, moves its head a little bit, moves its body a little bit, and it has these ears that are moving as it listens to you and talks to you. It is very cute, and in a way it's not human at all, but it has these characteristics that makes a human heard and understood, and it looks cute. And then we have this massive discussion here on, will we have general purpose robots like these humanoid robots that can do anything? They can move like humans in our current service-scapes, service environments, kitchens, hotel lobbies, and so on. Or will we move towards more special purpose type of robots? So they're developed only, let's say, to deliver room service or to deliver baggage to your room. And my hunch, it will be a mixture of both, right? And I will come back to this a bit later. So it's the integration. What I find very interesting is this no-code programming and fleet learning, meaning Frontline can ask a robot, why did you do this? And the robot will explain. And then Frontline can correct, say, look, you know, yes, that was one way of doing, but it's not the best or the most efficient. This was really urgent. You should have prioritized this one. So if the doctor says do this, that has your top priority. And so the next time the robot will know and it learned. And the other interesting thing here is, I mean, there's of course, I mean, you will have to have humans in the loop before you scale things, but technically you can have all of this learning. You teach one robot and you click a button and it will be distributed fleet-wise. We call this fleet-wide. We call this fleet learning. So the robot will so you teach one robot, all of the robots in the system will have that learning, right? So that's really exciting. So what are the implications of all of this? Let me share a few before I think we can go for some Q&A. So I mean, the first is these robots are connected to a firm's IT systems and databases. So you have CRM systems, point of sale systems, reservation systems, and these robots have direct access to them. So I always keep joking here. I mean, if you go into a hotel lobby, it seems forever until they give you your room key. They're keying around on systems and this and that. And the reason is they have to manually access everything. Is the room cleaned? What's your preference? Da, 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 da. A robot will be able, being connected in real time, to give you your check-in very fast, right? So we will have even better service here in certain contexts simply because of this connection, real-time connection to systems. Yeah, I predict that in a few years, in your Starbucks app, in your McDonald's app, you have a privacy setting where you can say allow biometric recognition in restaurants in New York. And when you come in, they know who you are and say, hey, Jochen, good morning. How are you? Would you like your usual? And I say, yes, please. And that's it. And you don't have to say anything else, and payment is done, and so on and so forth. So the biometric here, this system-wide learning about you and biometrics and so on, will deliver very different options for customer service. These robots have cameras and microphones, and we're so used to analytics of apps and websites, so click-through rates, page view rates, time needed, abandoned baskets, and all of these things here. But physical service encounters, they happen and we don't know anything about them. But now with cameras, I can get even more details than online, because in addition to whatever happens, I know I can read your tone of voice, I can read your facial expressions, I can read your posture. Actually, I don't have to do customer satisfaction surveys anymore. I know exactly how you feel, So I've got all of that possibility. So, and with this is emotional sensing and advanced linguistic capabilities. So Christina Merle and her team, they did all this work in hospitals. Robots can calm down patients before surgery. They can bring patients through yoga exercises, through calming breathing exercises, and so on. But they can also predict, nudge, upsell you. Yes, I mean, we can talk about ethics a bit later. So they can do this a lot better than human service employees. They make decisions on reservations, on pricing, on upgrades, on late checkouts, which is, of course, another potential concern on ethics and fairness and so on. But they can do all of that. And they autonomously execute service transactions. And I mean, I was with the McDonald's general manager here in Singapore on a panel, and he already said the biggest #1 problem they have is no labor. No one in Singapore wants to work in a McDonald's restaurant. So they're cutting, they're automating, and you look at a restaurant, I think it's almost all over the world. When you order on a screen, you make payment, you get a QR code or a number or something on your phone, and then you wait, and at a window, your number pops up, and you go there and pick up your food. And that's the only interaction you have with a human. And there's no need for that. You can actually have a little safety box there, if you will, and you hold your phone there with your QR code or your number, and it opens, and your food is there, and you pick it up. And inside the kitchen, I mean, we talked about general purpose robots. I mean, it's not that difficult to automate frying fries, making burgers, pulling an ice cream, making a coffee, right? These kind of things here. We will have a lot of special. So my prediction is for something like McDonald's, because they have the scale, they can develop these kind of robots. They will have a ton of special purpose robots inside the kitchen, and then maybe one or two humanoid robots that can move around inside the restaurant, and then probably one outside the restaurant to greet customers, to help if things don't go well. And I don't have to have any humans in this restaurant anymore. I may have, I mean, I know Jim Sporer mentioned this. He was one of the contributors to my paper on Gen AI here, and he mentioned we need humans in the loop. Absolutely, there will be a control center with 3 or 4 people overlooking I don't know how many restaurants. And if anywhere is a problem, a robot gets stuck, you can remote control, go into that robot and govern that robot from your control center, or you can dispatch a human there. But you can see where we are going with this. And it's what are the implications of all of this? And I've done a lot of research on cost-effective service excellence. How are you going to be a cost leader and a service leader at the same time? And I predict that these robots, Gen AI powered robots, will outperform all of the self-service technologies we have today and outperform all of these service robots today that are not Gen AI powered. And they will even be better in certain contexts compared to humans, simply because their memory, they are connected, they have everything there. We always say we want the human touch here, but we often forget the human touch is often very uneducated, unmotivated, and often not very helpful. So not everyone we talk to in a service context is a real service professional. Yeah. So I think on many levels, these robots will outperform also humans. And I mean, if you look in the service literature and the operations management literature on service, they always say if you want to deliver productivity and service, you have to do things such as buffering, protecting the back office, modularization, standardization, building volume. Because if you have similar processes at high volume, you can use systems and technology to deliver those. But now with service robots that can have millions of different ways of doing something in their large behavioral models here, I can even serve the long tail of interactions, because don't forget, if I'm McDonald's and I have 60,000 restaurants, I learn behaviors from 60,000 restaurants. So yes, it may not happen a lot in any one restaurant, but system-wide it happens often enough for my robots to be trained on that, and they're able to do this. So this old thinking may change again. So we may have a long tail of behaviors also for service robots. Here, continuous improvement and agility is another thing. I mean, we know today that of all the feedback you give to the front line, 99.9+% will never reach anyone beyond the frontline staff you're talking to in that restaurant or in that bank or in that call center. But now, remember, everything is digitized. Every transaction is digitized, so I can analyze it. I can figure out problems very, very quickly and address them very, very quickly. So, and then with the fleet learning and no-code programming, companies, service firms will become a lot more agile. Alleviation of labor shortage. We did a lot of sort of field interviews with physical robots, and one of them was the National Cancer Center here in Singapore. And that is a green site development, meaning brand new build and built with service robots in mind. So one simple example, the chemio trays are very heavy, and nurses used to walk 10, 15,000 steps a day from where the chemio trays are produced all the way to where the wards are. Today, these are robots that are shuttling nonstop, but it means the robots have to be able to open doors. Aisles have to be wide enough so that robots can pass and patients don't get inconvenienced. Yeah, don't forget, in hospitals, you may have people in a wheelchair. So there has to be enough space and so on. And it was built this way. And what they told us, we are not using robots to cut staff. we are short of staff. We need our nurses to be with the patients. And so they don't have to walk so much anymore. They can do this. And the other is they make the work of the nurses more pleasant. So they talked about the dull, dirty, and dangerous kind of work to be automated by robots. And I don't know whether you know, but one of the things you have to do when you're on chemotherapy is your excrements have to be analyzed. So they weigh it, they photograph it, they analyze it. And of course, nurses don't like to do that. Yeah. So what they have today is a robot toilet. So the patient goes into the toilet, they do their business there, and then the robot takes over everything, photograph, weighing, analysis, sending to the lab, and then it cleans itself automatically. So nurses, of course, love that. And of course, there are tons of new risks involved, and we can talk about this a bit later if you like. But there are ethical risks. I mean, the thing is, this technology is so good at predicting you, at nudging you, at persuading you, at selling to you. And the problem is, of course, that this is all done in a for-profit context. Yeah, so that is a challenge here. And of course, compared to AI, we have, because it's now physical AI, we have health risks and safety risks. I mean, if you have a robot in the kitchen, a robot can introduce germs and sort of spoil the food, use, I don't know, spoiled milk or something. And there's physical. I've seen in a hospital that wasn't a green site, was a brown site robot deployment. The robot bumped into equipment, very expensive equipment. So there's also a safety risk for people and for equipment. You can see there are lots of risks involved here. And we have a whole paper here on corporate digital responsibility if you're interested, where we discuss all of those. Here, let me end on a more, I'm very optimistic, as Jim knows. Yeah, let me end on a positive note here. To me, the two most important sectors for the well-being of humankind are healthcare and education. If you get these two right, I think the quality of life and the standard of life all over the world will increase dramatically. And both healthcare and education have had a dominable track record in driving productivity gain. I mean, school fees and healthcare both prices have increased faster than than inflation almost everywhere around the world. And I think robots here allow us to scale now physical healthcare as well, and physical education as well. I can talk about it. I mean, there are pilots here with robots all the way from kindergarten to university, and they're very promising. And let me also say, we keep forgetting. I'm from Germany. If I present this in Germany, I always get so much pushback. I mean, I always keep joking. Germans, they hate technology unless it's part of a car, you know. So they always push back. And they say, oh, the rich get richer. And so I said, you know, I mean, it's complete bullshit. I mean, it's not true. I mean, you look at the Economist writes about it regularly here that, hey, during the 60s, yes, we had where there was a better Gini coefficient for some time because manual labor paid really, really well. But before and after, it wasn't like this anymore. And it hasn't really been decreasing simply because the welfare in many economies is fantastic, especially in Europe. And what we forget is that a lot of the services we used to pay for a lot. I mean, I still remember when I moved to London to study 30 over years ago, a 1-minute phone call from London to Munich was £2.60. So a 10-minute call, £26. Can you imagine how many pints that is, you know? So I didn't call home a hell of a lot, right? Today, we have a 1-hour family call. My kids are all over the world. My wife and I travel a lot, but we have a 1-hour Zoom call or actually WhatsApp call every Sunday at a prefixed time. Whoever can join, joins. Most of the time, everyone is there. And what do we pay for that, right? It's free. And so it creates immense value. And there are many other examples. Google Maps. I mean, when I moved to London, there was no Google Maps. So I had a physical map. There was no mobile phone. I had to go into, I mean, you can imagine what life was like. And that is 30 years ago only. No email, no smartphone, and so on. And so the things are going really, really fast. And I mean, when my kids moved out, the last example, then we can stop. When my kids moved out from our home, they're so protected in Singapore. They don't do anything themselves. And my wife was so worried, how in the world will they survive? Well, how do they survive? Let's say you have a dishwasher that doesn't drain water. It is very simple. You put in Bosch and model number and doesn't drain water into YouTube, and there are 10 videos of 3 minutes each that tell you exactly where to look and when to call a mechanic, right? So most of the time you can fix it, but all of that is free. And I expect a lot more healthcare. I mean, we all Google now when we're ill, right? We go into Google and go into a Mayo Clinic and so on websites. But this will all be smart apps, and they can look at your oxygen, your tongue, your eye, your skin, your voice. Even there's a cough there. You can cough into a microphone and it tells you have TB or COVID. I mean, the things we can do already with a smartphone on healthcare are just mind-boggling. So, I mean, let me finish here on a positive note here. So, I mean, these are my predictions. Gen AI robots will be everywhere, and they will transform how we deliver customer service. One thing is, people always say, oh my God, this is also futuristic, but I've said nothing that isn't already available in some lab or in some R&D center of a company. And from Accenture, Narayan says, we can see an explosion of use cases and ideas emerge. And honestly, I mean, I'm in the service sector. There is no vertical, there is no industry, there is no application where there's not someone thinking of how can I use service robots here? How can I use AI here to automate this, to deliver it? So, I mean, Jim, I think we'll share the PowerPoint here. So you do have the QR codes of what was sort of the foundation of what I presented here. And except for the book, everything is open source. Our older book is also open source. You can do this, and you can follow me on any of these. And with this, let me say thank you. I know it's evening in the US. It is morning here in Singapore. Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you. And let me stop sharing.
Thank you. You are very optimistic about the future of service robots. I might say you're bullish. And so you predict the death of Bommel's disease, I would say, over and over and over again. So thank you so much, Jochen. This is an inspiring talk, and I'm so excited to work with Michelle Carroll, our executive director, to get it out to our 2,000 participants around the world, and I'm sure they'll get it out to others. So very exciting. And I do want to put a big shout out, thank you to Kevin Clark, who invited you to present. Kevin, of course, is one of our top ISSIP ambassadors and works with People-Centered Internet. And I really appreciate him making this opportunity available. I do have 3 questions, and I think you've partly answered them all, but it'll be good to go through them. But before I get into the 3 questions, you said something that got me interested when you said in Singapore and the McDonald's, they're not able to find employees who want to work in the McDonald's. And I think I heard just yesterday that the CEO of Ford said something like, our employees' children don't want to work like their parents are working. And I'm just wondering, that got me thinking, there must be some professions out there where the kids are going, I want that same job that my parents have. And I think that might be the future of human service systems, is where the kids are excited. They see the parents doing stuff. Because remember, that happened on farms. Farm kids said, I don't want to, it's too hard. I don't want to work on the farm. I'm going to go to the city. So I think, maybe you could comment a little bit about that, but I think the bigger question is, where do the kids want to work?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. In our intelligent automation book, we actually have a chapter on this with an optimistic and a pessimistic scenario in terms of jobs.
Yeah.
And the optimistic is, which I think most economists believe, and they said, look, every revolution, agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, created more jobs than it killed.
Right.
And the new generation of jobs was a lot better and more attractive than the old generation of jobs. I mean, you toil on the farm
Ah,
in the sun, you toil in the factory, and now you're in an office, right? But then in the office, you may do boring work.
yes.
So Gen AI will, the dull and boring will take this out of most jobs.
So
So
the robots do the jobs the parents did, and the kids invent new jobs.
they invent new jobs, they become influencers and personal trainers and
Ah,
tourist guides and other stuff, which is more human, I guess.
yes.
The pessimistic view we have is that this time it's really different and we will run out of work.
Hmm.
And then, of course, my co-author Pascal, he is French. He says, no problem, yeah, because look, before the Industrial Revolution, none of the elites identified themselves over a job.
True.
They were good at chess. They were interested in what happened in the opera on the weekend. They played polo, you know. So there was a lot more focus on the personal relationships and the arts and literature and other sort of human skills, intensely human skills people like. And I mean, let's face it, we do spend too little time with the people most important to us, right? That's our parents, it's our children, it's our spouse, it's our friends. So maybe we can work really less and have more time. I'm less optimistic on that, by the way. I think we are very good at inventing new things we all want to do.
So end the war.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree that, let's say, the basic human needs, we already work. I mean, we always say standard of living means how long do you have to work to buy a kilo of butter or a kilo of bread or a t-shirt or a pair of shoes. And that has been declining for the last 200 years.
Yeah,
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 so that's how our standard of living increases. And
absolutely.
my expenditure, let's say, I used to be with a German online company or bank and broker, and I mean, they charged me, for example, 19.95 euro for every non-euro transaction, and then they give me a shitty exchange rate, right? And I switched to one of the fintechs from the UK that they have a banking license in the EU and here in Singapore. So I'm saving these 19.95 euros on every transaction and the exchange rate. So I don't know what I save, 2,000, 3,000 euros a year. Yeah, so I've got that money now, which there will be less jobs for bankers. What do I do with this money? I'd probably go to a nice banyan tree holiday on a resort island in Bali or Maldives. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the
yeah, yeah.
jobs are also shifting where the margins are.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it'll be
So
very
so
interesting.
insurance, banking, my telco, I canceled all my telco contracts. I have an app now, and it's a provider that sits on the infrastructure that is there. And why? Because my telco charged me like $180 on roaming for something I felt I didn't roam very much, you know? And I said, this shouldn't happen again. And now my app is I prepay roaming and I can never spend more than what I prepaid.
Yeah,
And it's an app. I never had to call anyone. I don't want to call my telco. I don't want to call my credit card. I don't want to call my insurance.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't want all of that human touch. I want things to work.
Absolutely. Well, again, I look forward very much to working with Michelle Carroll, our executive director, and Kevin Clark, our great ISSIP
Yeah.
ambassador, to get this out to our 2,000 participants because it is very optimistic. And I'm reminded of a book Ray Fisk suggested, which was Humankind: A Hopeful History by Rutger Bregman. And in
Mm.
that book, he talks like you about, hey, if we have an optimistic picture of the future and we all work together to make it happen, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if we have a negative view of the future and we all work together to create that negative view, that becomes self-fulfilling. So
Yeah, yeah.
the quick three questions. The first one is philosophical, and it's from me, which is as service gets better, the quality of service gets better and better and better and better and better, our expectations as people go up and up and up and up. And but sometimes that can lead to greater dissatisfaction because if there's the smallest imperfection, we judge it as terrible because our expectations are so high. So have you done any explorations that might shine a light on that thought?
No, of course. I mean, look, we have this throughout human history that expectations increase based on what we know is possible. Yeah. And I mean, what was acceptable 10 years ago in terms of websites and apps is today unacceptable. And I mean, one of my predictions I didn't share here is, but I believe the Industrial Revolution brought a massive concentration of markets. So millions of tailors and shoemakers and furniture makers went out of business because the volume went to mass manufacturers.
Right.
Likewise, I mean, I said I'm with Wise and Revolut, the two fintechs in the UK. They are global. It's like Google Maps. I mean, how many Google Maps do you need? How many global banks do you need?
Mm, mm.
We have millions of banks right now, and my prediction is that most of them will go under.
Yeah, yeah.
And that means those that are not excellent and at the forefront of customer service, and then customers are more critical, they switch. And if you lose customers in a mature market like finance or telco, you have a problem. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, my prediction is that you're absolutely correct. Customers will not benchmark. Let's say, I mean, I just went to my dentist and I had a book an appointment. And it's so clumsy. I have to call, and then they send me a link, and then the link, all the appointments are full. Then I have to call again. Oh my gosh, right? Why? I mean, if you're a restaurant today and I can't make an online reservation, I mean, I don't even want to call you. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, I forgive my dentist because okay, it's a bit inconvenient, but I like my dentist here.
Right,
But the
right.
slightest reason, if my dentist moves, I'm not going to stay with this clinic.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
so yes, expectations are increasing, and more businesses will be
Excellence will
vulnerable.
increase as well. So,
Yeah.
okay. The second question is, you've painted a picture of service robots in largely B2C, business to
Mm.
consumer. Do you have any insights on business to business? How will service robots, if at all, affect the business to business interactions? Do you imagine?
Yes, same as B2C. Yes, I mean, certain B2B anyway is almost indistinguishable from B2C. I mean, you think about courier service like FedEx, DHL, and so on.
Okay.
Where we will have, I mean, look at Amazon, how many, I mean, they're increasing their robot population by tens of thousands every year.
Yeah.
And in their warehouses. And part of that business is B2B. So whether it's logistics, whether it is billing, inquiries, payments. I mean, we had already 30 years ago EDI, right, where you shoot invoices and make payments all elegant. It just was very clumsy because it had to be so deterministic and so heavily programmed. Today, I mean, if you look at insurance claims, let's say in healthcare, or invoice processing in B2B. I mean, we worked with a very large multinational insurance company. They had a team of 40 people in Malaysia processing hundreds of thousands of invoices a year.
Yeah.
Very boring work, very tedious. Invoices come from Japanese to Chinese to English in all languages. You know,
Yeah.
today this whole team is sort of three people, and 90.9 whatever of invoices are done by the AI. So I mean, I don't see much difference here as long as AI and service robots can deliver. So the AI thing has been happening, the virtual kind of processes has been happening,
Yeah.
that you integrate systems and so on.
Got it.
And where you need physical stuff, let's say fulfillment in a warehouse. Let's say you have to get car parts to your dealers for repair services and so on. I think a lot of that will be automated. Maybe
Oh,
not the last mile delivery, not yet. Although China is really playing with it. And I go to Finland regularly, so you see these little robots on the roads that deliver pizza, right?
and
Yes, I mean, I don't see a big difference here. Wherever it's dull, dirty, dangerous, we will have a lot more robots because then it's not just the productivity gain that matters, but it's also welfare of your employees and being able to recruit.
yeah.
And the other is where it is simply more productive and cheaper to deliver with robots.
So the last question comes from Steve Alter, who's also an ISSIP ambassador and very well known in the service research area for his work on work systems from an information systems perspective. But he was asking about the harms that are coming. And you did have some stuff in your slide presentation
Yeah.
about ethics and about you talked about the two scenarios of work and labor, but I think his perspective was coming from two things, and I'll just give you an example. The very first service robot that I ever encountered, I remember it very well. I was in San Francisco, and I was going to my IBM office in San Francisco, and a robot's coming at me on the sidewalk, and it's like it looks like a cone, and it's a police robot, and it's walking up, and I looked at it and I said, "You're a police robot." And somebody in the control center said, "Yes, I'm a police robot, and I'm just patrolling this area." And I said, "How many robots are you controlling?" And he says, "Well, actually, we've got about 5 prototypes out here, and we're just monitoring the area." And I said, "Oh, this is really interesting and cool." But, there's also like military applications of robots and, uh, you know, um, end of privacy if there's too many robots. And so, from a service systems perspective, when harms start happening to humanity, usually we have to have government intervention with rules and institution and new laws, but that's very, very slow. So I think when Steve asks about the harms, I think he's thinking about, okay, you're making service excellence in B2C, but what are you doing to help government and rules and protecting people and stuff like that? Do you have any perspective to share with us, Jochen, on that?
No, absolutely. This is a very, very, very real concern and risk. I mean, we did this paper on corporate digital responsibility, and our conclusion was that self-regulation will not work.
Yeah.
I mean, we all remember Mark Zuckerberg in Congress whining and sort of evading, and why? Because, I mean, simply Apple changing his privacy setting cost him $10 billion in advertising revenue a year. So are you going to leave $10 billion on the table? Of course not. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you will have to have regulation on that. The challenge is that the big economies are between a hard place and a stone. I mean, the EU is toughest on regulation, and therefore innovation is, of course, slowest.
Yeah.
China was always most gung-ho. They have autonomous vehicles on the roads. I mean, they say, look, accident rate is much lower than humans. Yes, we have accidents, but I mean, on the balance, it's beneficial, right? And the US used to be somewhere in between, but it's of course also moved towards easing up on regulation. And I mean, talking, for example, on military robots, look, don't you think the Ukraine would deploy whatever they can to defend themselves?
Of
Or would they
course.
say, oh, it's ethically not appropriate that we use robots to fight? Of course
No.
not, right? So I mean, so the minute you have a conflict here, everyone will throw whatever they have. I mean, if they're losing, they throw in whatever they have to do this here, and then you have it. You have military robots, and China explored military robots in ASEAN countries where they introduced robot dogs with machine guns mounted on them.
Hmm.
Yeah, so you hear very little about it, but it's all happening, and I believe it's a massive threat. And I mean, this is military is particular, but you also have things like dehumanization, human dignity, social engineering, addiction, disempowerment. I mean, look, if your AI makes all of your decisions, I mean, already now when we travel, is Mr. Google who decides whatever I do because my wife looks at Google and reviews and says we eat here and we visit that, you know?
Yeah. Right.
And in a year or two, we will just have an agent telling us we don't even look ourselves anymore through the reviews or anything. It will be an agent that tells us exactly, oh, look here, look there, and this is interesting and that is interesting. So, I mean, when television became very popular, people were very worried because your cognitive processing watching TV is very low level, much
Yeah.
lower than, let's say, reading or playing a game or something. So you're in a consumption mode and your brain is almost on standby. And the challenge is that if everything is done by AI, unless we want to challenge ourselves, we don't have to challenge ourselves anymore with anything, you know. Tell me the news, right? Tell me where to go. I mean, hardly any one of the young people today can read a map anymore unless they've done military service, right? Because you look
Yeah,
at
yeah,
your,
yeah, yeah. I hear you, and I know you mentioned you go to Finland a lot and you see some
uh,
technology there, but I'm also very impressed with what the Finnish education system is doing down at the elementary level, teaching about
yes,
disinformation and teaching self-control. Like,
yeah,
you have to control yourself when you're doing too much of something, whether it's
yes,
eating too much food or spending too much time. That's not healthy. And teaching this healthy self-control, which is I'll make a plug for another book, a 2015 book by Kentaro Toyama,
mm,
called Geek Heresy: Rescuing Social Change from the Cult of Technology, and it's a really wonderful book. But yeah, I think our humanity is going to depend on our ability to do self-control and healthy self-control, and I hope we rise to the occasion. Hey, Jochen, I know we've taken quite a bit of time here. I'm just going to stop the recording. But first, thank you, and thank
thank you.
Kevin Clark for proposing this, and we'll get this out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. It was a pleasure.